From sentencing for those convicted of crimes against children to a police chief's quest for accountability, and is a Holocaust denier's YouTube video hate speech? Our Wednesday crime panel is here, and joining us this evening, defense lawyer Deborah Hatch. Irfan Chaudhry is a criminology instructor at MacEwan University, and defense lawyer Greg Dunn. Good evening, folks. Great to have you back.
Good evening. Thanks.
Good evening.
All right, Albertans continue to mourn the death of another child.
It was truly devastating to all of us to learn how the search for her has ended.
Over the last 72 hours, we've had approximately 100 police officers at times working around the clock with the goal of finding young Talia, and unfortunately they are completely devastated by the loss, as am I.
The body of 5-year-old Talia Marsman, found last Thursday evening after a 3-day police investigation in Calgary and surrounding areas. A province-wide Amber Alert was issued Tuesday morning after police found Talia's mother, 30-year-old Sarah Bailey, dead in their Northwest Calgary home. 46-year-old Edward Delton Downey now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder. Downey was apparently known to the family and to police with a criminal record dating back to 1990. Irfan, to you first on this. A conviction in this would carry mandatory, right? Mandatory life sentence.
Yeah. And you know, with the attention that this case, of course, and you know, as you alluded to earlier in your comments, you know, the previous cases involving children in our province, there's going to be a lot of attention, you know, focused on the outcome.
The public is going to want the severest of penalties.
No doubt.
But how much does public opinion play when it comes to the courts making a decision?
Yeah, and so that's where it goes into the context of the principles around sentencing, right? Because you'll have the public that's really going to be watching this to ensure that the book is thrown at the gentleman responsible, and then it'll be the court's job to ensure that the proper evidence, the proper cases move forward, and you know, the correct sanction is given based on the evidence present. And you know, I think the attention that this will get, for sure, that will not be something palatable unless it is, you know, the most severe conviction in terms of the public's realm and the public's eye. So it'll be important to see that justice is kind of gone through, you know, in the correct ways, and how the public outcry in support of the sentencing is yet to be seen, of course.
The murder of Talia Marsman is the most recent in a series of violent crimes against children in our province. Other high-profile cases, including the 2015 abduction and murder of 2-year-old Haley Dunbar Blanchette, and the 2014 case of missing 5-year-old Nathan O'Brien. Deb, some might look at such cases and conclude that there is an increase in violent criminal activity against youth in our province. Is there anything, though, to indicate such?
It's always important to keep in mind when we're dealing, especially with very high-profile crimes and crimes that are devastating to the community, that you know, we have to look at the broader picture. So when we're considering, you know, does this signify something, we have to keep in mind that, in fact, crime rates have been going down. They've been dropping steadily for about the last 45, I think, years, and that is borne out statistically. So obviously, you know, it's a tragedy anytime something like this happens, but we have to keep in mind that, you know, crime is not increasing. We shouldn't be more fearful in our lives. We shouldn't be calling for greater sanctions and more crimes to be put into the criminal code, because crime is, in fact, dropping.
Well, and speaking of greater sanctions, Greg, the cumulative impact of crimes where children are victimized has reignited talk of bringing back capital punishment. How do you respond to that suggestion?
Well, I think anyone that, I mean, any of us who have any degree of humanity are affected by crimes against our most vulnerable, and those are children. I mean, I'm a father, and to put yourself in the position of those parents is heartbreaking, absolutely. What you need to keep in mind, though, is you know, we have progressed from a law and order sort of system in which it was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth sort of thing, to one that's, you know, we call a bit more progressive, whether that's the right word for it. We look at issues of rehabilitation, trying to, you know, crime prevention, as opposed to simply trying to lock people away, and that, by extension, you know, killing people for a crime that's committed. you know, at the end of the day, when you start opening up the debate about the death penalty, you look at some very important, significant, larger policy issues. The first one being, do you want to empower the state to be able to kill people, to kill its citizens? It's a general question, but you're basically empowering government and the authorities to take away the life of their citizens, and that, you know, for civil libertarians, that tends to be an issue. The second issue is more from the perspective of being a defense lawyer is, what about the wrongfully convicted? I mean, it does happen. It happens more than what people expect it happens. It's happened in many of our careers. It's happened in my practice. And what do you do in situations with someone who is actually factually innocent, is convicted of a crime? The jury makes a mistake. You know, in situations in which those guys simply get put in jail, you can do an appeal. You got your time. You can right that wrong. But if that individual is sent to the electric chair or injected with fatal lethal drugs, you know, that opportunity doesn't avail itself. So it's something that needs to be carefully considered before you go down that road, because it does change the nature of our very society and the administration of justice.
All right, time for a break. Up next, Calgary's new police chief and his focus on accountability, plus an Alberta hate speech complaint involving Holocaust denial. More from our crime panel after the break.